Welcome to another Azure Centric Podcast on our Azure Weekly Update show. My name is Marcos Nogueira, and with me, my best friend Andrew Lowes. How are you, Andrew?
I am amazing. Here we are, end of the week, thinking about all of the things Azure. It's
Yes.
wonderful. I know we were chatting earlier today, and it's true. It really is the highlight of our week that we get to get together and just chat about Azure things.
It is.
And I noticed on the Azure Centric channel that we had a lot of engagement with all of our viewers and listeners again last week.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to steal your usual line and say thank you so much. And don't forget, like and subscribe. Let us know. Leave a comment. We absolutely love to hear all of the feedback, positive, negative, neutral, I suppose, as well.
Yeah.
Want
Everything.
to share your favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe? Go ahead. Whatever you would like to do. We're always happy to read all the comments. It's really amazing though, because we do say it once in a while, right? Like we do remind everybody that if we can just help one person and just kind of give a heads up on these different updates and products and all these things with Azure, and we help someone, then job done. It really helps us feel good about all of the effort and time that Marcos has to put in to all of the editing and all of the lighting changes and everything like that.
Absolutely, my friend. And it's not stealing the thunder. It's like you deserve it as much as I do to doing this. This is being a long straight, and we are enjoying. I was talking to a friend of mine. He was asking me a little bit more about how we are producing the show and how we're doing and how is everything. So apparently, we are reaching out there even more than we were expecting, I have to say. Um, but it's awesome to have that type of feedback. I'm really humbled just to see all of the return. We do put a lot of fun and love and dedication on this. And it's really good to see to see it coming back, right? And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
always believe. But
it's
regarding Azure,
yeah.
it's been a different week, right?
It was weird. I think for the first time ever that the email of automation did not have a scroll bar.
No,
It was a little on the thin side this week,
I know
but
why, but I don't want to say it out of loud. But saying that because probably when you see this podcast, you will see one day before of the one of the biggest conference, Microsoft conference, the Build conference
exactly.
that starts on Tuesday, the May 25th. So
Exactly.
this
Yeah, we
podcast
saw this kind of behavior around Ignite as well,
ignited, bro.
because all of the product teams and all of the people behind the scenes that we don't get to see too often are very, very hard at work preparing all of those things. And I know we've all been seeing the updates on MS Docs. I just make the assumption that everybody else in the whole world also is on MS Docs every day looking up some kind of a reference. I know it's not true, but I still think that for some reason. But uh, it like they have the banner on there, and there's some cool stuff that they're cooking up for
Yes,
MS Build.
yes,
So I know we have at least here in Canada, we have a holiday weekend coming
yes,
up. It's a holiday Monday, I think, and we'll still release on time. We did talk about that, right?
yes.
And you're always teaching me things, so apparently consistency is important.
Apparently,
Yeah, as you know, I started recently a new engagement this week, and they have a social media expert on staff, and she was trying to educate me today. That poor young lady, she has such an uphill battle. I feel sorry for her. She is sweet. So, Darby, if you're listening to this, thank you so much. I know that you have a lot of love and passion for what you do. And I'm so sorry that I am really just a rough surface to work with.
That's okay. That's okay. So so for topics this week, we don't have a topic. We have to say we kind of going to talk a little bit of everything. We have a very nice, not announcement, but a very nice milestone that Azure obtained this week. We have cool updates regarding networking, regarding some of those SLAs increasing, always increasing, right? But we don't have like per se a topic this
No,
week. It's
I
more
would
like a
agree.
generic one, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of there's a little mixed bag of everything, mixed nuts, if you will. We are a bit nutty sometimes, but
Yes, absolutely.
I think that special announcement for me is kind of a highlight,
It is.
only because it's kind of a big deal, and a lot of work goes into that type of thing behind the scenes. So I think it's a cool announcement.
It is a cool announcement. So it's time that we are rolling, and we'll come back in a few moments. So welcome back, and let's jump to the first one. And the first one that we have for this week is the general availability of Azure Key Vault SLA raised to 4 nines. Okay, so pretty cool about this. So we're starting the week with the announcement, or in this case the podcast, we announcement or 4 nights. Oh, 4 nines, not 4 nights. 4 nines.
You might be thinking of the video game, perhaps Fortnite,
Yeah.
or
I
is it
was.
Fourth Night? I don't know. I don't play much video games anymore.
My video game, it's not. Yeah, it's more like a race simulator game that I do. But yeah, Fortnite I leave to my son to do that. But it's 4 nines. So 4 nines, what we are doing is an incredible amount of availability of Azure Key Vault.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that's kind of neat is, as these different services like Key Vault, for example, um, kind of start to take a good hold. And I know that even I have been starting to take advantage of Key Vault a little better now. So one of the neat things is that Microsoft likes to back their SLA guarantees, right? So it's not only just a promise of which they do hold very close to their heart, right? But they also back it financially. So SLAs are guaranteed.
Yes.
In Azure, and 99.99%, that's pretty good. So a quick glance at the what does that mean document on here tells me that if that falls to 99.9%, you will get a 10% service credit for the Key Vault.
Yes.
So it's kind of an interesting thing, right? Like you don't have to do anything. If that metric falls below that threshold and you use the service, you get issued that credit automatically on your invoice, or it's communicated to your partner, right?
Absolutely. But what I like about this is these 99.99%, what they say is that they guarantee, Microsoft's guarantee that they will process Azure Key Vault, okay, just to understand, within 5 seconds with at least 99.99%. So meaning that every time that you are querying the Azure Key Vault, if you get more than 5 seconds, okay, it's where you're starting the SLA. So means that, man, this could be really starting to go wrong if you have multiple or several subscription or several applications on subscriptions and starting to query, and you're going to below or above the threshold of the 5 seconds, because that's what they guarantee that Azure Key Vault will handle, is those queries within 5 seconds, or in this case with less than 5 seconds, right? um, and if it goes above those 5 seconds, that's where the SLA becomes, because Azure Key Vault will always be there because it's a global service. All right.
Yeah.
So
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and I think the last thing I integrated with Key Vault was using an ARM template that called a key value,
yes,
and I mean it's so flexible, right? Like there's a lot of different things that you can use. The most common is calling credentials of some flavor or another. So
yes, I use Key Vault to go on that path. For example, for certificates as well, especially
yeah,
with private keys. It's really keen when you have that and you need to request the certificate, just use the Key Vault. The part that I like about this is on the Key Vault, just to go a little bit more deeper, is you have different areas. You have the logins, in this case the credentials, that if you want to give access, you can give access to that, only that, but they don't see the certificates. But if you are giving access to certificates, to query the certificates, you don't have access to the credentials. So I'm a huge fan of this, and I always use this a lot. And we've been talking about Key Vault on this show for a quite few some time, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's been some incremental upgrades, some additional layers of the service added, new features, and it's been really interesting to watch Key Vault grow because we both started kind of using Key Vault shortly after it came out. Really, I probably once it hit GA, maybe a little before,
Yeah.
but it's such a useful service, and I'm so glad that Key Vault is still like making these new improvements. So better SLA is just better for everybody.
It is. It is completely. It is completely. Moving to the next one, talking about the Azure Stream Analytics, 5 new regions are now in general availability. So Stream Analytics is a service that I have to say that I don't use very often, but I do use quite a few times, especially when you want to do it. In this case, some kind of a transformation, or some kind of not transformation, some kind of log shipping and all of that, to be able to use the service, right, and to be able to use that. But right now, 5 new regions. So Australia Central, Germany West Central, Norway East, South India, and the United Arab Emirates North is becoming, and now it's the 33rd Azure region worldwide that will have Azure Stream Analytics.
Yeah, it's again, it's another growing service, and like you were saying, it's about big bandwidth and fast, high speed, high throughput data ingestion, right?
Yeah,
So it's really like you say for when you're transforming data or moving between services. So there's some specific use cases. Multimedia comes to mind, right? Because it's always such large data amounts. When you're doing a lot of AI analysis as well, machine learning stuff. So there's a lot of implications for this. So it really means like a lot of the underlying services now have the ability to scale out as well as scaling
yeah.
up, right?
And you can use for IoT. You have a lot of ways that you can use this as well. But it's a very starting to be a very big offering that Azure, as we seeing, is starting to grow, and be able to see that they are growing to other regions as well. It's awesome, because not all the regions have exactly the same services. They need to grow on that way. They need to see it and to deploy it on those regions as well, right? So moving to the next one, we are a little bit off pace over here. But moving to the next one is something that we mentioned last week.
Mm-hmm.
That is the general availability of the Azure Health Bot adds new regions and language for its system checker.
Right? Yeah, and it's a really cool product, right? So it's definitely a vertical for Azure Health services. And last week we talked, I think, about how HealthBot was pushing out in additional regions
8
in
new
India.
regions, including India.
Yeah, and our very close coworkers and friends in India are really utilizing services like this right now to get a handle on health challenges, right?
Yeah.
So the pandemic has really brought a lot of that into focus. It's relevant for many of us now, right?
Yeah.
And it's really cool how Microsoft is not only expanding availability of HealthBot service, but it's now expanding the language support for the system checker. It's like every week there seems to be something new that's pretty big, like a big steps forward, right?
Yeah, completely. And it's available, and it's one of the service that during this pandemic was created, right? And since January of this year, it's been available on Marketplace. And right now they are adding 8, as we mentioned last week, 8 new regions, and now it's available, also adding 16 new languages into this. So they add 8, and now they are adding 16 as a way that you can see as a system checker. And because of that, I think we found a
grammatical check error here. Yes, I was I was just on the same thing. You go right ahead. I think I did the last one.
No, that's okay, because on the title they say that it's system checker, but on the description of the update they say symptom checker.
Yeah. And if you actually go and drill down in the symptom checker link at the bottom, it is totally triage and symptom checking. So systems checker, I thought they were talking about a back-end service for the health bot that checked on its systems. And I thought, hey, that's really cool, man. It's going to be guaranteed uptime again. Here we go. More improvements. Right? What do I know about HealthBot? Not a whole lot, apparently.
Yeah. No, it's just for check if you have symptoms of COVID in this case.
Exactly, which is what it was made for. So I was kind of curious about it, but whatever. I don't question things.
For a moment, to be very honest, when I read this the first time, and I was trying not to laugh when I started to read the in this case the title, it reminds me that movie that we are on the what's the name, the
I want to say Groundhog Day because I'm a big Bill Murray fan.
No, it's that they have the robots that Skynet. Remember Skynet?
Yeah, Skynet, yeah.
So and that's what it's like. Oh, they are checking the system of everyone. Nice. To see if we are updated, if we are patched.
I just want to be clear here. As we announced a couple of episodes ago, Azure updated their logo.
Yeah.
Just saying, what a great way to say thank you from Microsoft. Wouldn't it be nice to receive some new water bottles and sweaters?
Yes.
I'm just saying. Yeah, although maybe I should say t-shirts because I want to think more about summer.
Yes. The coffee mugs. I will accept coffee mugs. Anything with the new logo, it's going to be awesome. But exactly. My God, it's cool like logo. Imagine that you are receiving a text message say you are out of you are not out of range, but you are outdated.
My patches are at -2.
Your patches are -2 or something like that. It will be awesome. Okay. let's move on. I think it's
Yeah, we're gonna go sideways pretty quick.
completely. The next one I have to say is interesting because it's about the Windows Virtual Desktop web client to end support of for Internet Explorer 11 on September 30th, 2021. So this is more like an announcement, right? That they will not support the Internet Explorer 11.
So I'm going to say standalone Internet Explorer 11, right? Because this week, separately, Microsoft also had some tech community articles
Yes.
about how the future of Internet Explorer is really inside Edge. And actually, I've been using Edge myself. I've used it in WVD for sure because we use Windows 10 as some of the image for that. So it's really solid, and in compatibility, like kind of downscaling it in the compatibility mode for Internet Explorer, it does work pretty good with a couple of apps that I've tested it with.
Yes.
So if I know that a lot of organizations still have dependencies on IE, especially when we think about large financial applications that are built for vertical markets and government markets.
Yes.
Those seem to always be the two areas where we struggle to
healthcare as well, especially on healthcare because
Yeah.
of those legacy applications that usually they are attached to some type of device or some type of healthcare kind
different
of system,
back-end processes, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's
financial as
complex, right?
well. Yeah.
These are usually very large applications, right? So we're not talking about even something at a CRM level, which is pretty complex as well.
Yeah.
But it's a layer higher than that even.
Absolutely.
So nonetheless, it is going to be sunset September 30th, right? Coming up in this fall.
Yeah.
Out of the WVD image. So it's definitely something to target. So if your organization or one of your clients is using WVD and is counting on Internet Explorer 11 in that image, it's time to start now. Don't wait. Don't look for reasons to put it off. The reason is here. Look for ways to solve the problem. And lots of different resources out there, certainly not the least of which is Microsoft's tech community. I know I already mentioned it, but there's outside of Azure updates and things like that, there's product specific updates. And that's where actually a lot of the product team people publish little blog articles, like magical tidbits that have tremendous amounts of technical detail that can really help you.
Absolutely. So in this case, this web client is where you can have one of the ways that you can access the virtual desktop. So on this day, you will no longer be able to access with IE11, but you can still use your normal web client like Edge, Safari, Google Chrome, Firefox. They are still be maintained as the way that you can use it. That let's be honest, it's the normal way to do it on the WVD. Although there are some organizations that they use this internally that they still use IE11, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there's all kinds of reasons that are just kind of hanging on the edge, but not the least of which the next article up is kind of the special highlight, right?
It is.
So Azure gains its 100th compliance offering, protecting data with EU Cloud Code of Conduct. Whew, that's a mouthful.
Yes.
Well done, Microsoft Azure. That is a lot of compliance offerings. 100.
100. Yes.
That's a lot of work. Let's list all of them for all of our listeners today, Marcos. I'm teasing, of course.
Okay. I got scared for a moment, but yes. So
that's one of those things where the camera pans away and comes back after the sun sets.
Yes. So it's amazing just to see that Azure and we know this because we've been working with Azure I've been working with Azure since the beginning, and now achieving 100 in this case of this compliance, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable in this case code, not code, achievement that they are doing. So it's really good in this case. They are announcing it was with the European Cloud Code Conduct, in this case, developed for the European General Data Protection Regulation, the famous GDPR, right? That achieve another way to do it. So with this, they got from the Belgium Data Protection Authority, that was one of the last ones to do that, and now they are compliance. There's another offer to do it, so it's amazing to see this, right?
Right, and it's a big deal. So just to kind of put a bit of a frame around what does one compliance mean. So for this compliance requirement, they verified the adherence of over 140 Azure services that comply with this standard.
Yes.
Right? So this is just the one. There's 100 of these. So that's a lot of work, and that's why we're so proud of Microsoft Azure, and it's why we're really happy to be part of really just talking about Microsoft Azure and using it every day. I was talking with a client today, actually, about the robustness of Azure and the Microsoft security kind of suite of products, and how it can really complement not only compliance, but a robust business continuity and disaster recovery plan, and really be front and center with that, right? And I think a lot of these compliances really help make it easy for us as consultants to talk to our clients about how awesome it is.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, because that's the part that is really key on all of this. It's all of these compliances. So it's like I just opened here the list, and it's absolutely amazing what they are doing. What is the complying offers? Are they from global, like the all the CIS benchmarks, the SOX, the ISOs, the US government.
Yep,
You
the
have a lot.
FedRAMP ones. Remember talking
FedRAMP,
about those
oh
like a month
yes,
ago or
the
something, right?
FIPS in this case, the
Yep.
NISTs, the DODs. It's amazing how they can do it, and even you going to um, some regional ones, like going to specific for us. For example, the Canadian privacy laws. So
Yes, IPEDA. Yes.
they are complying with that. With countries like, for example, uh, China, India, Australia, it's unbelievable. Financial services, it's completely, and of course, one of the most critical ones that we always found, the HIPAA with
Yeah.
healthcare and life. It's
That's a
it's
tough one,
unbelievable.
right?
That's a
It
very
is.
tough one.
Yeah, it's right up there with like CIS level 2 and all those other like really lofty goals for
Yes.
compliance.
Financial, like one of the biggest one that I ever seen, especially on this, it's the FINMA of Switzerland.
Hmm.
It's incredible how they can be very very doing it. Even on financial, they're going on the regional level as well. Like for example, the Canada one with the OSFI, for example, and all of that. It's like it's incredible what they are trying to achieve with all of this. Is It's unbelievable. Plus all of those additional compliance resources that they have, and to doing a parallel on this, and to spend a little bit more time than usually on this achievement. You don't see this only on Azure. You see this extrapolating, for example, to Office 365. So
That's
they
true,
don't
right? Yeah,
stop on
it's not
Azure.
siloed. Yeah,
On
because
Azure.
well, now, okay, so let's talk about that for a minute, right? Because that does get a bit complicated. So we think of Azure and Office 365 as separate things, and in many ways they are, but they're also tied together, right? So, what infrastructure does Office 365 run on top of?
Like what infrastructure is the same
Yeah,
than Azure, although it's a different data
it's
centers
it's it
separate
is
physically,
segregated, right? Yeah,
separated. Yes,
but it is built on top of Azure infrastructure technology.
it is.
So when the like one of the benefits is that so when you think about like GDPR standard, for example, it's so famous, right? But when Azure meets that from an infrastructure perspective, we're also gaining that benefit and the confidence of that layer because that almost immediately filters in to Office 365 at that same layer. It might take a little bit longer to get, for example, like Exchange Online or specific products within 365 stack to become compliant with all of the standard as well. But at the infrastructure layer, we get to inherit the benefits of Azure to 365 as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it guarantees that we are doing it. Although 365 is a SaaS offering, like a software as a service offering, but
It's
the
true.
underlying they need to be configured with the same infrastructure that we are talking about. Although different data centers, they will have. I'm assuming that they will have the same mechanism that Azure have because Azure is as a PaaS and IaaS kind of offering. So a platform as a service and infrastructure as a service kind of offering, and that's where they are separated, right? Because the way that Microsoft managed their own data centers, in this case for Office 365, it's not on the same way because the level of automation is totally different. On Office 365, we only consume the services, um, but we on Azure, we are building those services, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's really interesting to me because I know we talk about it kind of once in a blue moon really, but it's always fascinating to me how we get to inherit kind of all of these little advances from Azure kind of transparently in the background with Office 365 as
completely,
well.
completely. And a lot of those compliances, if you're going, for example, on the 365 security, that we're doing that as well, for example, with policies, DLP, and there are services that they are kind of working together. So for example, the advanced threat protection, for example, and all of that, Azure information protection and Azure AD identity and all of that they are transverse to on not only Azure, in this case Azure subscriptions and Azure as a Microsoft Azure, but do as well on the Microsoft 365 cloud services that they are basically kind of transverse like Azure AD. You'll see a lot of those. This morning I was with one of my customers working on that to just showing them that yes, you can make and you can see what is your compliance, for example, and get the reporting what you are missing or not of one of those 100s on Azure through Azure Security Center. But you
Yeah.
can also go to Office 365 and exactly the same compliance, and you can say, you know what, I want to implement DLP, for example, on Azure Information Protection on the Office 365 with the same level of compliance. And now
Exactly.
I can go on the Canadian privacy laws, like you cannot pass, for example, the Canadian driver license, the bank accounts, and all of that, doing all of those compliance that we have, right? And now we
Exactly.
can pass and say to Office 365, Hey, if you see any type of this data, you are not sharing, it will be blocked. So it's not like, it's like you said, there is a thin layer between both, that they are using exactly the same infrastructure. Not exactly the same, but they are kind of sharing the same compliance, let's call it this way, right?
Yes, exactly, right. We get to inherit all of
Absolutely.
those properties. I was just thinking I'm going to have to update my compliance slide deck that I use with my customers
Yeah, you
because
have one
now
more now.
we can say we have 100. Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, I wonder what number is in there. So I'm going to have to look because I think it might be a little out of date.
Yes. Yes, that's why we have this show. So if you subscribe, and again, let me click on that. If you subscribe to this show, you will know all of those type of things. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have only the most wholesome baked in Azure goodness available.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Freshness guaranteed or your money back.
Oh, exactly, totally, 100% of your money back. I have
It's
to say.
funny. I remember. I just want to think about promising guarantees to clients. I remember the episode of the American The Office, and when Michael Scott starts his own Michael Scott Paper Company. You remember this?
Yes.
And they're selling on the phone, and they said, "Well, just offer them a guarantee." Well, what do you guarantee? We guarantee that your satisfaction is guaranteed, and that's our guarantee. I think they said guarantee like 15 times. I'm sorry, that's just what came to my mind.
Completely out of track, but that's okay. That's okay.
I'm sorry, folks. It's the end of the week. The sun is
It is
shining, and
completely.
these things happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, moving to the last but not the least. Yes, it's been a short week as we announced on the not pre-recording, on the introduction, right? So last is the general availability of Azure ExpressRoute. 5 new peer locations available. So Microsoft is announcing new 5 locations available for ExpressRoute: Bogota, Madrid, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Toronto too.
You say those names so much better than I do.
Yeah,
So
especially São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, right?
I just love the way that you say that. You could say that all day long. I'd be happy. So,
So
I'm
now
gonna
we
blame
have
the end of the week. Oh my god.
75 global, okay, commercial peerings locations that we can connect our Azure or our infrastructure to Azure in this case.
Right. And one of the I was just thinking, maybe let's share the story about when we talked about this before the recording, when we
Yes.
were talking about our articles. So I know it's okay. It's self-deprecating humor. It's fine. So I asked you, and I said only because I think this is going to benefit some of our listeners, right? It's just like if we can help that one person, right? So I said, well, hold on a minute. What about Toronto too? Don't we call this Canada Central? Because for some reason, even though it's end of the day, my coffee did not kick in yet. And you said very politely and professionally to me, but Andrew, we're not talking about regions. We're talking about ExpressRoute peering locations.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
We're
right.
talking about data centers. Okay.
Exactly. So
Because,
we're talking about each data center within the region. And a region typically has 2 or more data centers within a region. And it's based on milliseconds for communication between the data centers to qualify as a region. And that's why we end up with like US West 2, US West 3, all those things, right?
exactly.
And Toronto 2 is really just Toronto 1's brother or sister or whatever. It's the other data center, right?
Yes.
So
So,
we have Toronto in Canada Central, and now Toronto 2 is a peering location. So you can, in theory, build some increased redundancy in your networking by having 2 peering locations within Canada Central.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the part that I'm glad that you bring that up, that we were discussing this on the pre-recording part of it, because this is the type of things that I like to bring to our show, right? Is to clarify all of this. So the Azure region, Microsoft already announced that, I think until the end of next year or something like that, they will have 3 regions. No, sorry, 3 zones per region. Okay,
Yes.
for every region that they have on Azure. This peering, it's local peering. Okay, could be the express locations, sometimes referring as the peering locations or meet me locations. Basically, are where is the location where you have the Microsoft, what they call Microsoft Enterprise Edge, okay, devices. So it's like the point of presence, okay, that they have regarding that. And that is where is your entry point into the dark fiber, okay, of Azure. Toronto 2, in this case, doesn't mean that we are outside of Canada Central, or Toronto 2 is Canada Central. This is one of the region, the peering locations, in this case, that we are connecting to. So, for example, Chicago, you have a lot of them. Okay, you don't have
Yeah,
only Chicago.
there's a
Uh,
lot of fiber in
a
Chicago.
lot of fiber. It's one of the main hubs in this case. So, in total, what they have is they have um, they have a lot of regions. For example, so on Canada Central, you have Toronto and Toronto 2. For example, on West Central US, you have Silicon Valley and Silicon Valley 2. Even on Washington, you have Washington DC and Washington DC 2. So is they are locations of peerings that, as you can imagine, you can only hold such an amount of connections, right? Because
Mhm.
this is a physical connection. We have to
That's correct.
we have to reinforce. It's not a virtual connection.
Yeah,
ExpressRoute, it's a MPLS circuit that you are connecting to a port on a switch or whatever it is into Azure. Okay,
that's correct.
so it's a physical location. That's why you're starting to have all of those kind of Toronto to Washington DC to Silicon Valley to Los Angeles as well. Have 2 of them. Chicago, apparently they don't have. They have. It's one of the biggest that they have in North America. But there are on other locations. For example, I remember now Singapore. I think they have Singapore and Singapore 2, and Tokyo, for example. And if you're going to Sydney as well. So some of those 75 global Azure peering locations, you will see that you have double, or you are starting to have numbers. In China, I think you have as well, and in this case, and not China, India, you have as well with Chennai and Chennai 2 and Mumbai 2, something like that.
Well,
Uh,
there's Azure in China as well, but it's a little bit different. It's Azure through ViaNet 21, I think it is, or
yes,
something like that.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And Europe as well. It's not only those big regions, the local regions, like for example London, Frankfurt, that is the German region. For example, you still have that as well with London and London 2 and something like that. It just allows us. The good thing about all of this, right? It just allows us to have other regions or other peerings, right? And ways that we can connect to Azure and make this high availability. Because theoretically, or in this case, if you respect the Azure well frame architecture, or well architecture framework, um, is you should have 2 ExpressRoutes, right? To not having a single point of failure.
Exactly.
And now you can have, in this case, for example, on the same region, if you want, London, I will pick London. London and London 2, so you can have one to London and the other one to London 2, and that's it. You are covered with that, right? For example, you don't need to go to another region to have that availability, for example, right? So, and this could be something that they are announcing an extra 5 in this case, and those are the ones. We Canadians are lucky to have, in this case, the Toronto 2, because apparently Azure is been growing so much in Canada.
Definitely. I know that I have a couple of customers that have been expanding their kind of adventures into cloud, certainly over the last year. And I know that there's a couple of big customers as well, moving pretty rapidly in the Canadian Azure regions. So it's really good. It's really nice to see Canadian companies and industry embracing Azure. I know that I'm really enjoying that, and it's really just nice because we can talk more with more colleagues about Azure, our updates for one, but also the different ways that Azure helps different industries. It's really nice just to see that kind of progress across the country.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, if you went to the blog post, in this case, you can see the location and partners, and depending on location, you can go with different even velocities as well, and different partners as well. For example, I'm seeing, for example, in this case, Toronto. That's what you mentioned. In Toronto, you have College Gig Story that you can have from 10 gigs to 100 gigs, and in Toronto too, you have Allied REIT REIT that you have again 10 gigs and 100 gigs. Although I have to say one thing is I was going to see the blog post and all of that, and I found one curious thing is they have one point of presence, one Azure peering location that it's not attached to one region, that is in Vancouver, right?
Yes, which is really interesting,
It
right?
is
Because it's close to
Seattle,
Seattle, and
exactly.
a certain company we know and love has a pretty big Canadian office in Vancouver. I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
What do you mean by that?
I know Microsoft has a pretty big office in Vancouver as
Yes.
well, right?
No one
So,
F3 office in Vancouver.
yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. Yeah, their
Yes.
presence is very large on our west coast, but it's really cool because Vancouver doesn't get a region,
No,
but there is, I think it's an Equinix peering location in Vancouver. But it's really interesting, right?
it
That's
is.
sort of newer. We used to have to go down to, I think it was US West 2 or something like that was the closest one from us here in Western Canada, because Canada Central can be a little bit far away, can be a little, what's the word? Cost prohibitive
Yeah,
for small business to have an express route across the whole country, right? Because it's
absolutely.
often distance based as well, and latency gets higher and all those things.
Yeah,
But it's really cool because there's a lot of alternatives that keep evolving with how to connect to Azure and also how we use Azure services. So
absolutely. And
really fun to see.
it's really fun. And if you're going to the Azure Commercial Global or Azure Commercial Azure, and on a blog post, you see that there is a lot of locations that they are not attached to any regions. And again, this is the entry point to get onto those. This is where Microsoft starting their boundaries of the dark, of the not dark fiber, but on the Azure fiber, in this case, that to just be able to connect to Azure. So it's what they call the POP, the point of presence, to enter, in this case, into the Azure world and to the Microsoft fiber. Very, very cool to see that and to explore a little bit more in depth. I know that we probably lost a few thousands, let me call it this way, viewers right now. We're going that low level, but I hope that it was instructive to you. In this case, talking all about this, and when we have a little less, in this case, updates, we can go a little bit more deeper and talk about a little bit more into these topics.
Exactly. It's kind of fun when that happens sometimes.
It does. So with that, we finalize our show for this week. So thank you very much once more time. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to smash that like button like crazy. Come on, let's do it.
He's back, folks.
Completely. I'm really excited about this. Next week, or not next week, this week that you are seeing, we have Microsoft. I forgot the name. Oh my god.
Microsoft Build.
Build. Yes. I was saying Ignite, but Ignite is not now.
Build. You know what? I think I've done it twice this week when talking with people as well. Yeah, that's okay.
That's okay. You guys forgive me. No worries about that. Microsoft Build, so enjoy that. If you are not registered, it's free. So for the first time, not the first time, the second time in my life, I can watch, in this case, the build, because it used to be sold out in 30 minutes or whatever it is. A few years back, they were giving a lot of good prizes. It's a developer conference, but although they have a lot of good announcements. So let's see what goes next week. So once again, enjoy the outside, be safe, and thank you, Andrew, once more time for being my partner in crime. And thank you for listening. And I hope I can see you next week, right?
Absolutely. I'll be here every week.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, everybody, for staying tuned. We really love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Thank you, and bye.